SAMHSA has for many, many years focused on the issue of co-occurring disorders. And what we mean by co-occurring disorders is the existence of two disorders, basically, in one individual. That is, an individual with substance abuse disorder or addictive disorder may have a mental illness, or someone with a mental illness may have a substance abuse or addictive disorders.
I came in like a zombie. My depression was so bad. Drinking to dull everything, to dull the pain.
I'll stop taking my medication, and then eventually I'll go back to using drugs.
I was like on a roller coaster, relapse after relapse after relapse.
And nobody ever told me what was going on. They just kept me the 72 hours and let me go.
Realized that my addictions and things that I dealt with had to do with mental illness.
I wish I would have knew about the programs that are out there for co-occurring.
We know that 8.9 million people experience co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders in the United States.
Less than 14% of the individuals who have co-occurring disorders receive integrated treatment.
So SAMHSA began to take a look at how do we promote this notion of having an approach that would combine what we know about how to treat mental illnesses and what we know about how to treat addictions and substance abuse disorders in an integrated, literally co-occurring way.
Understanding that people could have both at the same time took us out of that disorder focus, because it was no longer enough just to treat the mental health condition or just to treat the addiction.
I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in my early 20s and was drinking alcohol on a daily basis at the same time. It wasn't until 2 years after my diagnosis that they recognized my alcohol problem. Dual disorders are very common. About 50% of people with a mental illness also have a substance use disorder. I was not alone in that.
One of my diagnoses was that they couldn't really pinpoint my diagnosis because of my use. But after a while of being off substance, they come to find out they was treating me for paranoid schizophrenic, which I'm paranoid anyway. but I mean, it really came to find out I had depression.
I'm sad, lonely, depressed. I think nobody loves me, nobody cares about me. I want to die, you know. So, because I'm feeling this way, I'm going to say, well, maybe a bottle of vodka could take care of it. So, bam, I mix it in. Mix it in with the vodka, and then I'm feeling so good, I'm drinking 2 more beers. Maybe I'll smoke a joint. Maybe I'll grab a cigarette at the same time. Maybe I'll feel better. And then, the next day after, all your happiness and all your fun is gone, dark hole again. It sort of continues. It doesn't stop, and it gets worse.
I can remember being there like in a hopeless dilemma where you don't think there's no way out but to use.
You know, I felt the drugs have given me, and my father, like I said, I remember going back till I was 5, you know, and it's really attacked my body, and it's, and the body's there, it's kind of attacked it. And it's part of it. So to break loose is almost an impossibility. You know, it's very tough. It's tough to break that, and it's quite a struggle.
Recovery is a holistic process, and the importance of treating the whole person can't be underscored enough.
It gets at the heart of what we call integrated care, and that is where the United States healthcare system is moving.
Integrated treatment is a major pathway toward recovery.
The Center for Substance Abuse Treatment and the Center for Mental Health Services worked very closely together over the years to develop evidence-based practices that would focus on integrated treatment. Co-occurring disorder treatment works. We know that it works. We need to continue to make sure that no one ever goes without the recovery supports they need. We want people to know that they should expect and demand that there should be an integrated approach to their treatment.
I wish I would have had this a long time ago. I don't know about y'all, but
yeah,
honestly,
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone who has a substance abuse issue ends up having an underlying sort of mental health issue as well, but a lot of us do, and, you know, I think it's, for me, you know, I didn't get psychologically tested until I was in my mid-20s, and I started, you know, going down this road of abusing drugs and alcohol when I was in high school, and I was in treatment centers, and they never psychologically tested me, and you know, it's frustrating because when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, and I started working with a doctor to get on the right medication for that, you know, it wasn't easy, but it really did help a lot. And, you know, I think I look at recovery as kind of being like a puzzle, and there are all these different puzzle pieces that come together to allow me to stay sober. And it's different for everybody, but you know, finding a doctor, getting on medication for me has been a huge puzzle piece. And I think every treatment center should be a dual diagnosis treatment center. The fact that they aren't is sort of baffling to me. And, you know, yeah, for the people that don't end up having, you know, sort of co-occurring disorders, then, you know, they don't need that, and that's great. But I think the assumption we should always start with the assumption that, you know, there may be more going on there than just the drugs, you know, the drug and alcohol abuse.
Nick Sheff spent the better part of a decade in and out of rehab fighting to overcome a crystal meth addiction. Throughout his battle, his father, David Sheff, stood by his side.
Their story is now a major motion picture called Beautiful Boy, and it's already getting some early Oscar buzz.
Who are you, Nick? This is me, Dad. Here, this is who I am.
Beautiful Boy is a major motion picture out starring Steve Carell and Timothée Chalamet.
I thought we were close. I thought we were closer than most fathers and sons.
It's based off a real-life story of Nick Sheff's struggle with drug addiction and the toll it took on his family.
I'm really sorry, Dad.
Growing up, Nick's father, David, remembers him as a happy kid.
He was just amazing. I mean, I know I'm his dad, so I'm a little prejudiced. But I felt that we were, you know, incredibly close.
Nick, who grew up with his dad, stepmom, and younger half-siblings, also remembers being close and happy, but says there was always this underlying feeling of anxiety.
I felt, you know, just like a heaviness that was kind of almost like palpable from a young age.
Nick says he started drinking in 6th grade and by high school was using drugs daily. But everything changed when he was introduced to crystal meth.
I think as soon as that drug hit me, it was like the feeling I've been looking for my whole life. I spent the next 10 years kind of chasing that feeling that I had that first time.
Nick didn't know he was addicted. He thought he was just partying, having fun. When I told him that he had to go into treatment, he just rebelled.
People say you have to hit bottom, and I did. As bad as I could imagine it just always got worse.
After a decade of relapses, today Nick is in recovery and has been for 8 years.
The fact that I get so much joy out of the simple things in life really is like the biggest gift that I've gotten in sobriety. It's changed everything for me.
And David and Nick are here with us this morning with an important new book they've written called Hi, Everything You Need to Know About Drugs, Alcohol, and Addiction. Good morning, guys. We're so happy you're here.
Oh, good morning.
Nick,
Thanks.
particularly you. And also, I feel like the fact that you've written these books, this is your third, about addiction, is brave. Telling your story and now seeing it on the screen is really brave. You're helping a lot of people. What was it like to see this?
Thank you. You know, I mean, to me, it was kind of an amazing gift. I feel like that the filmmakers gave me. I know that's a weird thing to say, but, you know, I've been sober 8 years and I write for television and stuff now. I mean, my life has really changed a lot. I'm married. I have dogs like you saw in those pictures. You know, so for me, watching the movie, it was just such an incredible reminder of everything that we went through as a family and how lucky I am to be alive and how lucky I am to be sitting here with my dad. And I just, I came away from it feeling so grateful and like I should just never sweat the small stuff again because I'm so lucky.
David, take us back a little bit. It had to be heartbreaking, obviously, for people who are watching who can relate to what you're going through and for people, frankly, who are just parents and you see your child spiraling. What was your thought on, some people said, you know, you should just let him go, let him live his life. Were you know, what was your thought behind that? No, I'm fighting for my son, or take me back.
Yeah, I'm fighting for my son. When people told me if this happens to you, people will tell you too. let them go. They have to hit bottom. What are you talking about? My son is dying. I'm not going to let him go. It'll get worse and worse. And I spent 10 years trying to save his life, and that's what I would tell other people who are struggling with this now. No, don't give up.
Yeah. Nick, when were you like, okay, I know that this is something deeper. I think we talk about drug abuse and we think, oh, that's it. But really, there was something deeper. And talk about that.
Yeah,
moment.
I mean, I think for me, it was a couple things. Like one was, it really took me a long time to admit to myself that addiction really is a disease and that I have to treat it as a disease. And whenever I put a substance into my body, a mind-altering substance, this phenomenon of craving starts, and I just can't stop. And so once I really admitted that to myself, then I was really willing to like get help and kind of do what people suggested of me. And then once I started doing that, that was when I really started to kind of try to heal this underlying feeling of like anxiety and depression and also the bipolar disorder that I was diagnosed with. So now I'm on psychiatric medication. I work with a really great doctor. I do, I participate in a recovery program that is a little bit anonymous, so I'm not going to talk about it, but that's really helped me. And I just am so grateful for my life today and for my dad never giving up on me, like you said.
And what advice would you have? Let's say a parent watching finds marijuana, right? And some parents will say, oh, I did it, or oh, it's not that big a deal. How do you address it? Do you think you did all the right things even back then, or what would you say?
I did all the wrong things back then. I guess what I would say is that when I found out that Nick was smoking pot when he was pretty young, when he was 11 years old, and I went to his teacher, I went to a counselor at the school, and they kind of told me what I wanted to hear. Nick's fine, he's a great kid, kids are using pot, it's a rite of passage, it's pretty normal. What I wish they would have said to me is, what's going on in this kid's life who it's 11 years old, he's getting high, what's going on, and let's figure it out and see if we can help him.
And that's why you guys wrote this new book. It's for teenagers to really address why they want to use drugs. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, we've been trying in our country for decades to try to get kids to not to use, and just say no, we know doesn't work. So then the question is, can anything work? And what we found out is really it can if we start to recognize, if we just stop focusing so much on the drugs themselves, but on the question of why people use. And it turns out that kids use for a whole range of reasons. Some of them are maybe obvious, peer pressure, and but a lot of it is because of stress, and it's about struggling in school, it's about struggling with friends, about family problems at home, mental illness. I mean, things that if we get to the root of those things, if we address the problems, then we can mitigate them, then we're going to help a lot of kids grow up healthier.
Awesome. Well, thank
Conversation we need to have.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing your story, because you're providing a lot of people hope.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful Boy is in theaters now, and their new book, High, will be available in January. We'll be back.